Good evening. This is Mary Ellen McKay. I'm the Vice
Recording
Chair.
in progress.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Okay, starting again. Good evening. This is Mary Ellen McKay, and I am the Vice Chair of the City of Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment. And this is the September 23rd, 2021 Zoning Board meeting. Sorry, my mask and my glasses don't like each other. This evening's meeting will be conducted in a hybrid format. The meeting is accessible in person on the third floor auditorium of Nashua City Hall, 229 Main Street, and via Zoom at the link posted in all public meeting agendas. Attendance via telephone is available using the Zoom connection details. The meeting can be streamed through the city's website, nashuanh.gov/318/CTV. The public may also view this meeting live on Comcast Channel 16. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 821-2049, and they will help you connect. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting via the methods mentioned above, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. The chair is in control of the meeting. To the extent practicable and advisable, the board will follow the procedures as identified in its bylaws. The applicant will present their case, followed by questions by the board. Next, persons wishing to speak in favor or with questions or opposition will be asked to speak. If there are questions or opposition, the applicant will have 5 minutes to present a response. Finally, one and only one person with questions or in opposition will be permitted to speak again before the board deliberates and determines an outcome. All participants should endeavor to comply with the timeframes of 15 minutes maximum for the applicant and 5 minutes each for anyone wishing to speak in favor or in opposition or with questions. A light timer, which I don't see, is not being used to manage the speaking time this evening. We have a timer up on the screen. It will change. No, it won't change. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Tonight we will be hearing requests for deviation from the Nashua Zoning Code in the form of applications for special exceptions and/or variances. A special exception is a request that seeks permission to do something that the zoning ordinance permits only under special circumstances. To grant a special exception, 5 points of law are required to be met. These are outlined in the application and will be summarized in board motions. A variance is a request that seeks permission to do something that the ordinance does not permit. Variants also have 5 points of law to be met, different from those for special exceptions. Per the City of Nashua bylaws and State of New Hampshire revised statutes, a minimum of 3 or more affirmative votes are required to approve any application. In addition, this board will hear all scheduled cases if a quorum of 3 voting board members is present at this meeting. Any citizen has the right to contest a decision that this board makes. Should we make a decision that you believe is in error, you have the right to request a rehearing. A written rehearing request must be received by the City of Nashua Planning Department within 30 calendar days from the date of decision. Should this board not grant a rehearing request, you can file an appeal directly to the New Hampshire Superior Court. Please contact Mr. Falk of the Planning Department for more information. For this meeting, we have the following board members in attendance. We have Mr. Nick Kanakis, we have Mr. Jay Mancara, we have Mr. J.P. Boucher, we have Mr. Jack Currier, the clerk, and myself, Mary Ellen McKay, the vice chair. In addition to board members, we also have with us Mr. Carter Falk, the deputy planning manager, Ms. Kate Poirier, the zoning coordinator, and Mr. Matt Sullivan, the planning department director. Let us start the meeting by taking a roll call in attendance. For board members participating, not applicable tonight, everyone is here. Mr. Falk, are there any changes to our agenda?
Madam Chair, there's one change. The case for 36 Granite Street will not be heard tonight. It was postponed until the October 26th meeting and will not be here tonight.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll do a roll call of the members. Nick Kanakis.
Present.
Jay Mancara.
Present.
JP Boucher.
Present.
Jack Courier.
Present.
And Mary Ellen McKay, and I'm also present. I will now read the first case into the record. The owner is the City of Nashua and the Nashua School District. The applicant is Sean Smith, Director of Plant Operations. The address is 36 Buck Meadow Road, L, Chokeberry Lane, and L, Cherrywood Drive. City of Nashua, Nashua School District owner Sean Smith, Director of Plant Operations, applicant, 36 Buck Meadow Road and L, or land, Cherrywood Drive. Sheet C, lots 762 and 2851. Requesting a special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-112A to work in other wetlands and wetland buffers to allow for the construction of athletic recreation fields for proposed new middle school. It's in the R40 FUOD zones, Ward 9. This case was tabled from last week to come back, and so is there someone here who wants to present?
I think we should probably just take a vote to take it off the table.
Well, we do need to take a vote to take it off the table. You're absolutely correct, Mr. Courier. Would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to take the case off the table so we can open the public meeting.
And JP is our second. Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir?
Vote in favor.
Mr. Mancara,
Mr. McCarr votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher,
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Courier,
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
and Ms. McKay also votes in favor. So we will now, the case has now been removed from the table, and we will open the public hearing so that someone may come and speak to us about the changes, adjustments, edits that have been made. And please state your name and your address clearly for the record.
Sure.
Thank
My
you.
name is Sam Forg. I am with Harriman Associates. Address is 22 Loring Street in Boston, Massachusetts.
You can share your screen.
Okay. Okay. So obviously, this is our second time back in front of the ZBA. Last time that we spoke, we had tabled the conversation in order for us to set up a workshop meeting with the Conservation Commission in order to address some of their issues that they had with the proposed design at the time. We had that meeting on September 1st. Everybody, joined together, brainstormed, and ultimately came together with the solution to which we submitted our new concept design on September 9th and had our third Conservation Commission meeting with them on the 22nd last Wednesday, to which the Concom voted to approve the revised project. So this next slide shows some of the adjustments that have been made. We've hatched in some of the area here to show the revised layout. What's shown beneath is the old layout. So we've essentially moved the basketball court into the location as to where the tennis court previously was located. And in concert with what the Conservation Commission wanted, they wanted us to provide a 50-foot buffer to these wetlands, which are also deemed as potential vernal pools. So giving additional buffer to those two resources. So with that realignment, we've had to adjust some of the parking. We've effectively reduced the impervious from previous design to this design by about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. And our impacts to wetlands has actually has gone down through a series of changes. As you can see right here, we are now impacting this wetland, but in making some adjustments I'm sorry, I'm trying to zoom in here. Making some adjustments to the 100-meter dash area for the track. This used to have kind of a longer tail here. And so with us shifting that tail back onto the western side, we've been able to minimize the impacts to this wetland. So subsequently, we've reduced the square footage of impacts to wetlands here. Like I said, you know, it was a joint effort with the commission in order to come up with this revised design, to which we believe that we are now satisfying each of the 9 criteria items that the ZBA looks at for a special exception. So with that, I guess I'll open it up for any further questions that you guys may have.
Does anyone on the board have any questions of the applicant? Mr. Courier?
Is the open culvert, that number 3 you just had on your screen there?
Could I reshare?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead. Hold it down so that the audience could see the board.
Sure. So I can get into some of these additional things that we've talked about with the Conservation Commission. One of the comments that we received was we had a hydraulic connection previously here, but it was a 24-inch box culvert. We've upsized that now to a 36 by 24 open bottom concrete box culvert in order to allow for wildlife to travel underneath the road. You know, smaller critters and things of that nature would have a passageway through the wetland area to get from basically north to south or south to north. Similarly with this one here, we're providing another box culvert, an open box culvert, and that will connect this southern portion area over to the northern area where this is all really a wooded area and full of wildlife.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm all set.
Did anyone on the board have any questions? No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this application?
Hi, good evening. I'm Lisa Gingras. I'm the athletic director for the school district. Guess we'll list my address as 36 Riverside Street, Nashua High School South. I did send an email later last week in support of these changes and the updates and the necessity to have the full complement of athletic facilities at our new middle school. One of the things that is very much lacking at Elm Street Middle School right now is the outdoor space. One of the biggest things for me is our students' health and safety, and it always concerns me when our students are out at their soccer fields, their baseball field, and their softball, soccer, and baseball fields, that if there were ever a weather emergency or an emergency of any other kind, they have no shelter. So having the fields like Fairgrounds and Pennachuck do right at the school, if there's ever an emergency of any kind, the students can seek shelter inside the building. Another thing, if as you at any point in time go by Fairgrounds or Pennachuck, where they also have the track and the fields and things of those nature like we're looking to do at the new middle school, it is not just our student athletes that use the facilities, it is not just our physical education students that use the facilities, but it is the school as a whole. You often see grade level teams out there doing team bonding activities, things like that, that it gives them that space to do that. The other part is the community at large, not even just the school community, but the neighbors are going to benefit from these facilities in the area. Ever since we've been middle school and junior highs, our students at Elm Street are transported by bus every single day to their facilities. I'm actually a former Elm Street student. We used to walk to our softball field, but that changed several years ago when we transferred to middle schools. They are now bused every day to those facilities. So this, by having the facilities right on campus, it's also going to allow the bus company and our transportation department those resources that all of those buses every day will no longer be necessary. And finally, I could go on forever, but I won't, about the importance of our interscholastic athletic programs for our student athletes. Many of our student athletes, it is a critical component to their middle school and high school experience. Some of our students, the only reason they do well in school, get the grades they need to get, and behave themselves is because they want to play sports after school. Many of our coaches could come and speak with you about how many students sports have saved, starting right in 6th grade, right through graduation in high school. So it's really important. I feel very strongly that the fields being right at the new middle school, we may attract more students, because some parents may not want their students being transported to another facility, because then parents have to go pick them up there. Whereas if it's right at their neighborhood school, much more convenient for both our students and our parents. So thank you.
Good evening. I'm Alderman Rick Dowd, Ward 2. I'm also the chair of the Joint Special School Building Committee, and the middle school project is something that I'm managing. Our meetings with the Conservation Commission, we have agreed to work with the Conservation Commission as a team during the whole process of this project. There are other things that we've agreed to that weren't necessarily mentioned. The one Central Vernal Pool, we're going to be doing, what's the name of it? Hypervaculum. And they'd have to explain that to you, but it's basically an area around that is used by the things that are in the vernal pool. Also, we're going to be working with them on plantings. Whenever we do something other than the grass, that we'll be consulting with them and working with them on all aspects of this. So I don't know if the chair of the Conservation Commission wants to speak to you, but the vote was unanimous, 5-0 in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sherry Dutsey. I live at 18 Swart Terrace and chair of the Nashua Conservation Commission. I just want to thank the ZBA for the wise decision last time to table this, because it gave us time to go back to the drawing boards and really come up with a design that I think is a win-win for everybody. I also want to give a shout out to Commissioner Sarno, who did a lot of work on this in terms of looking at it and seeing what we could do. We ended up sacrificing one wetland area so that we could strengthen 2 others, and that we could change the road a little bit to eliminate some impervious surfaces. And as Alderman Dowd said, and we worked together to look at other areas in terms of landscaping. So we did the vote. It was 5-0. We would like to see the project go on. And again, it was a great team effort, and I do want to thank Alderman Dowd and Harriman for their willingness to take our concerns seriously and to revise the project, because I know it's been a very arduous task for everybody involved. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of this application? And we are in receipt of a letter from the chair, Sherry Dutsey, of the Conservation Commission, which outlines everything that has been previously stated. Is there anyone then who would like to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or in opposition to this application?
Do you want to also ask about Zoom?
Oh, okay. Before I ask for concerns, is there anyone on Zoom who wants to speak in favor of this application? Kate, are you seeing?
Yes.
Carol, sorry.
Oh, okay, I see a hand, okay.
Hi.
Can you please
Hi,
just state your name and address for the record?
Certainly, I'm Carol Sarno, 15 Rocky Hill Drive, Nashua. I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, but not speaking for the commission this evening. I just want to agree with the essence of what Sherry has already mentioned, and say thank you to the board for sending this back to the commission, and also thank you to Alderman Dowd and Harriman for making the changes that make the proposal better. And so I think we have a better proposal now than we had before, and so I am in favor of it.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I missed seeing you up there. Getting used to the hybrid is a little bit daunting at times. Is there anyone else on Zoom who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, I will now ask again if anyone has any comments, questions, concerns, or opposition to this application. I will ask for first here in the auditorium. Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom who has any comments, questions, concerns, or opposition? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Madam Chair?
Madam Chair,
Yep.
I believe there were 2 letters that were sent that had some concerns.
I don't have 2 letters. I had the diagrams and the Concom letter.
They're in the packet that you just
Oh.
received tonight, behind the plans.
Oh, it's on the bottom of the stapled plans. Here, if you want, I'll just, here's one that you can read it for the record.
Yep.
Okay, to the Nashua Conservation Commission, I would like to add a few eco-friendly suggestions to the planning for the middle school project on Buck Meadow Road. Being mindful of the habitat and wildlife in this rural community and adjacent conservation lands, I recommend minimizing light pollution, restrict and limit light exposure away from forested lands as recommended by an environmental engineer. Lighting impacts day-night plant cycles and wildlife. Amphibian-friendly roadside curbing or none for necessary terrestrial lifestyle and foraging travel. Eco-friendly salt alternatives for pathways and all surrounding roadways. Nesting platform floodlights of particular osprey are noted in this community. Thank you, Kimberly Foster, 38 Pine Brook Road in Nashua. And the second letter is hi. Not sure if I missed the window for public comment already, but I wanted to add my comment in strong opposition to the new middle school and adverse impacts it will create. Submitted for the record. First, Nashua does not need a new middle school. Rather than wasting taxpayer money, make do with what we have, renovate Elm Street, or expand other schools to host more students. Second, if you move forward with a new school, it shall not be built on forested wetlands, which are already rare in our city. Stop destroying the last green spaces we have and turning Nashua into an urban dump. Use eminent domain if needed to repurpose urban areas for the middle school. Save the green space and turn it into a park. Furthermore, even if you did move forward with this site, I urge you to skip all athletic facilities to save the green space. Construct a trail network instead to teach outdoor recreation rather than soccer and basketball. Get your values straight. Anton, I'm going to kill this name. Pughevsky. Yeah, I'm not even going to attempt it. 3 Jamaica Lane in Nashua, New Hampshire. Did you want to attempt the name?
I think you covered it with the spelling.
I apologize. to the gentleman for not wanting to destroy his last name. Okay, now I will close the public hearing. Oops, we need to, see any comment on the opposition? Boy, how quickly we forget.
Yep, no problem.
We had received each of those letters prior to the meeting with the Conservation Commission. So in lieu of that, we will continue working with the Conservation Commission on any of those issues that were cited there. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member of the board have any other comment while the applicant was still okay? Now I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Carrier?
Well, in
Your
summary, I'm in favor of the application. I had pause at the last meeting because I felt that the mitigation was a bit scant, but I really feel we should rely on the Concom for that. So I'm really delighted, the Concom and Mr. Dowd and folks got together and really forged a good result, I think, in very short order.
The talk and
Get
then,
it in our
and then,
packages. So I'm fine with the 4 stipulations that the Concom has, and I just wanted to speak about those 2 letters we heard. I mean, on the first letter, as the applicant had said, it's kind of a bit of an ongoing conversation with the Concom, and the second one, I think, is a little bit out of our realm about whether the school is needed or not. We're here to discuss the wetland issues, and our experts on that are the Concom, and they've approved it. So while I appreciate hearing anything from the public on a matter before us, I'm not persuaded that would change my vote to a no. So I'm good to go.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher?
I also support the application. I believe that the applicant has demonstrated that the wetland special conditions will be fulfilled. And again, the support from the Conservation Commission with the 4 stipulations, I think is key to this application going forward. So again, I'll support the application as is.
Thank you. Mr. Minkara?
I agree. I support the application as well, and I really do appreciate the effort that was put in between city staff and the consultants, the Conservation Commission, Board of Aldermen, to make this a better plan. And we'll just specifically note when it comes to the criteria, one of the issues that I certainly zoomed in on the last time was the wildlife impacts, and there's been specific measures that have been taken to enhance wildlife protections on the site, and that's definitely appreciated.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kanakis?
I'm also in support of the application.
Thank you. Mr. Courier?
I just, thank you, Mr. Boucher. I mean, we didn't tonight specifically speak about the 9 criteria, but we did speak about it at the last meeting, and the applicant had answered all those in the affirmative. And I just wanted to say that what we have before us tonight is, shall I say in summary, additional mitigation. It's better. So the criteria was answered last meeting as all in the affirmative, and we have a better package or more mitigation. I didn't think it was necessary to go over those 9 items. We could, but I think they're on record. They're already testified that they're met.
I concur. We had done that at the last meeting, and the only thing that I think I learned from this one is that they've done it better. They made it better. As we all wanted to hear what they had to say, they listened to what we had to say, and they went back and they did a really good job, and it's impressive, and I too support this. They took into consideration all of the wildlife, all of the habitat, and that's important to every one of us. So I am also in favor. Would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Boucher?
I'd like to make a motion for the City of Nashua, Nashua School District owner Sean Smith, Director of Plant Operations. Applicant is 36 Buck Meadow Road and L. Cherrywood Drive. Sheet C, lots 762 and 2851, requesting a special exception of Land Use Code Section 1A-112, Section A, to work in other wetlands and wetland buffers to allow the construction of an athletic recreation fields for the proposed new middle school to the R40 FUOD zones, Ward 9. We find that it is listed in the table of uses. We find it will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. We find it will not overload public drainage or sewer or other municipal systems. We find that the special regulations are fulfilled. We find that it will not impair the integrity or be out of character with the neighborhood, that to be detrimental to the health, morals, or welfare of the residents. Again, special conditions, the applicant has met the wetlands special conditions, the 9 special conditions. Also, we are placing the 4 stipulations that the Conservation Commission recommended to us from the September 22nd, 2021 meeting that was held recently. And those 4 stipulations will be part of this approval. So with that, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
Thank you, Mr. Courier. Thank you for your second. Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Courier votes in favor of the application.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
And Ms. McKay also votes in favor. That's a unanimous decision. Congratulations, your special exception has been granted. As we explained to each applicant, any decision we made can be appealed, and you have a 30-day window. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please refer back to Mr. Carter Falk. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. The second case this evening, the applicant is Richard G. and Sarah Kelly. Owners, Sarah Kelly Churchill Chiropractic LLC. Applicant, 147 Concord Street, sheet 48, lot 9, requesting special exception from Land Use Code Section 190-47B for a major home occupation for a chiropractic acupuncture business. This is in the RA zone in Ward 3, and I see who I assume to be Richard and Sarah Kelly at the podium. Would you please give us your names and your address?
I'm Dr. Sarah Churchill, or Sarah Kelly. Home address is 147 Concord Street here in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Richard Kelly, 147 Concord Street, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Now, you now have the floor. Please present your case to the board.
As it currently stands, I have the ability through you guys to see 3 patients a week at the home address. I have taken advantage of that. I am about to go into a transition at my current job. I'm currently looking at space to move a formal business into inside of Nashua, but I'm applying for this because with the way that construction and things are going, I'm concerned that there may be a small lag time in the time that I leave my job, and I don't want to leave my current acupuncture patients without a place to go. That being said, the current caseload that I have, if they were to all follow me, it should not change any traffic pattern. There's plenty of parking. We have 3 to 4 off-street parking. I don't even intend necessarily to put up a sign, as I'm not intending to build this into a major business. I simply want to provide a space that the existing patient caseload that I have can continue to see me in the interim. I have already put in an offer on a space on Simon Street in Nashua, but I'm not sure how that will proceed, and so I just wanted this as a backup. So I'm not sure if you had any questions.
Does any member of the board have any questions for the applicant? Seeing none. Thank you. There's one thing before you leave the podium. These special exceptions, did you see the land use code section around the special exceptions for major home occupations?
As I'm not certain what you're referring to, my
Okay,
guess
then
is
if
no.
I read them, will you?
I emailed it to you guys.
Okay. I'm not
Excuse
just
me?
remembering what they were. I'm sure I read whatever it was.
Okay,
It was like 9 criteria. I did email them to you, I think on Friday.
And I think I looked at them when I filled out the initial form.
Okay.
Yes, because
We
I
went
remember
over them.
chatting about them.
Yes.
Okay.
okay.
Discussed them at the council.
That's fine.
Okay,
So
good.
in the conversation
Phew.
with yourself and Mr. Falk, you concur that you remember, but for our record, we would like to have your acquiescence here. Number one, no more than one non-resident shall be employed. No more than 30% of the gross floor area of the dwelling or 300 square feet, whichever is less, shall be devoted to such use except for childcare facilities which may use up to 420 square feet. The use shall be carried on strictly within the principal building.
Correct?
The use will not change the internal or external residential character or function of the dwelling to the extent that the use will be objectionable to other residential uses in the neighborhood.
Correct.
Thank you. There shall be no exterior storage or display of any kind which is related to the home occupation.
Correct.
The use shall not create any noise, dust, vibration, odor, smoke, glare, electrical interference, fire hazard, or nuisance to any greater or more frequent extent than that usually experienced in other residential dwellings.
Correct.
Only goods produced on the premises and made to order for a specific customer may be sold on that premise.
Yep.
There shall be no advertising on the premises other than a single non-illuminated sign which shall not exceed 2 square feet in area. Such sign may only indicate the owner's name and address, and the street address shall be prominently displayed by use of numerals no smaller than 3 inches in height and no larger than 6 inches in height.
Correct.
Not more than one commercial vehicle shall be stored, parked, or otherwise situated on the premises. Such vehicle shall not exceed 25 feet in length.
Right.
Can you just say that again? See,
Correct,
I can see
yeah.
your head going up and
Yes.
down, nodding in the affirmative, but we want to make sure we have your voice on the record. The use will not cause vehicular traffic which is substantially different from that which currently exists on the street.
Correct.
Okay, so for the record, the applicant agrees to all 9 criteria. Thank you
10,
very much.
actually.
Whoops.
There's 10 there.
10?
10, yeah.
No, I'm sorry, I can't count.
All right, correct, thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone on Zoom here to speak in favor of this application? I don't see any. Seeing none, I'm going to ask if there's anybody present who wishes to speak with any comments, questions, concerns, or opposition to this application. Seeing none, I'm going to ask, is there anybody on Zoom who has any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? I see a hand. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Deborah Shaw, 148 Concord Street, Nashua.
You have the floor.
My one question is for Sarah. Are you expecting to grow this business, and are you going to be hiring any other chiropractors to work with you at that location?
Please.
No, can't do that.
Oh, you can't? Oh, no, that's right. Okay,
Was there anything else?
do you have any other comments you want to make? Because I will be able, once you're done, to give her the floor for 5 minutes to respond to your comments.
No, not at all.
Okay, fine, thank you. Now, unless, if there's any other person there who wants to speak in opposition with questions, comments, or concerns around this application. because we want to get all the comments at one time so we can get all the answers at one time. Okay, I don't see anyone. All right, you may, again, just state your name, please.
I'm Dr. Sarah Churchill, 147 Concord Street. To answer the questions, and I hope I remember them all, no, I'm not intending on hiring anybody at all. I am fully capable of taking care of the patient load, and I have no intent to grow the patient base while operating at the home office. I'm only intending to grow once I moved to the more commercial setting for the business.
Okay, thank you.
So now she has,
And Ms.
Deborah
Deborah Shaw, does that satisfy your comment?
Yes, thank you. That's all I wanted, and I wish Sarah the best of luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, since there's no other questions, comments, or opposition, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Boucher.
I'm in support of the application. The application was, to me, pretty straightforward, very clear what the applicant's doing. The applicant did describe what her plans were, so again, more so would I find this to be, would I find to be able to support this. And again, the applicant did make her testament to the major home occupation 10 items on our list here. So I'm going to support the application as is.
Thank you. Mr. Minkara.
I also support the application for the reasons stated. It meets the criteria.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis.
I'm also in support.
Mr. Courier.
I'm in support of the application for the reasons previously mentioned by my colleagues, and after hearing from the applicant themselves, and, you know, understanding that they've been in the business for a while, it just gives me more confidence that it'll be a successful venture that won't bother the neighborhood.
I also concur, and she stated pretty categorically that this is a temporary adjustment, and so I too support the application. Is there someone who would like to make a motion? Mr. Boucher.
I'd like to make a motion for Richard G. and Sarah E. Kelly, owners, Sarah Kelly, Churchill Chiropractic LLC, applicant 147 Concord Street, sheet 48, lot 9, requesting a special exemption from the Land Use Code, section 190-47, section B, for a major home occupation for a chiropractic acupuncture business, CRE Zone, Ward 3. We do find that it's listed in the table of uses. We find it will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impaired pedestrian safety. We find it will not overload public water, drainage, sewer, or other municipal systems. We find that special regulations are fulfilled. We find it will not impair the integrity, be out of character of the neighborhood, or be detrimental to health, morals, or welfare of the residents. And again, we are also stating that the applicant did attest to the 10 items for major home occupation, that those will be met. So again, I make a motion to approve the special exception.
And thank you, Mr. Minkara, for your second. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
And Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
And Mary Ellen McKay also votes in favor. That is a unanimous decision. Congratulations, your special exception has been granted. As we tell applicants, any decision made by this board can be appealed within their 30 days. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please re-refer back to Mr. Falk or Ms. Poirier in the planning department. And thank you very much, and good luck. Third case. Are we all still good? Okay. Third case, Breanna and Michael Souza, owners, 113 Connet Road, Sheet C, Lot 1765, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-31 to encroach 5 feet into the 6-foot left side yard setback to replace an existing 8x8 shed with a 10x16 shed. This is in the R9 zone in Ward 5. Is somebody here to speak about this application? They're on Zoom. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, hello, my name is Breanna Souza, and my address is 113 Conant Road in Nashua, New Hampshire.
And my name is Michael Souza, also from 113 Conant Road in Nashua.
Okay, the floor is yours, Mr. and Mrs. Souza.
Thank you. So essentially, we're just looking to tear down an existing shed and rebuild a brand new shed in the same spot. That is, we're going from an 8x8 to a 10x16. The new shed actually will be a foot off of the fence, whereas the existing shed is right up on the fence as well. So we're just looking to encroach 5 feet into that 6-foot variance.
Okay, is that your testimony for this evening that you wish the board to take into consideration?
Yes.
Does anyone on the board have any questions of the applicants? Aha, hands went up. I saw Mr. Minkara, then Mr. Courier.
Just curious if the applicant could address the reasons for the larger shed?
Yes, thank you. So we have a need for a larger shed because of the equipment that we're storing out there. We have lawnmower, a snow blower, just outdoor equipment that we're looking to store, as well as the pool equipment that we have currently. It just stays on the deck, so we're looking for it to get properly stored in the shed and get shelter from the weather.
Thank you.
Mr. Courier.
I was just curious, on the last page of your application, there was also a hand-drawn little map, and the shed was drawn like at an angle, but on the previous few pages, what was Kate just had on the screen, this one, if you can see it, it's square to the property line. I was just curious if you were planning it square or angled, just because there were two different plans in here. See, that one shows it square that we see there, and if Ms. Poirier goes down to the bottom, one more, that one shows it like at an angle. I was just wondering which it is, because there's two different plots there.
Yes, of course, I apologize for that too. So the angle is correct. The fence does angle a bit, so it would be at a slight angle.
Okay, so then the closest point, would that be a foot off then?
That's correct.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that for me. I'm all set.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none. Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here in the audience who wishes to speak with any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak with any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? I don't see any, Kate, do you? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Minkara.
I support the application. The existing shed clearly encroaches, actually currently touches the lot line, so this would encroach less. The size, 10 by 16, is reasonable, and the uses they're seeking to put the shed to are reasonable, so I support the application.
Mr. Kanakis.
I'm also in support of the application. The shed's encroaching on the side setbacks are fairly common for us, and I really don't see anything egregious about this application to incline me to deny it.
Thank you. Mr. Courier.
I support the applications for the reasons stated by my two colleagues before me.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher?
I also support the application for all the reasons stated.
Thank you, as do I. Mary Ellen also supports this. Would somebody care to make a motion? Mr. Boucher?
I'd like to make a motion for Breanna and Michael Souza, owners of 113 Connet Road, Sheet C, Lot 1765, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-31 to encroach 5 feet into the 6-foot left side yard setback to replace an existing 8x8 shed with a 10x16 shed in the R9 Zone, Ward 5. We find that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than variance. Again, this is a replacement of an existing shed. It is going to be a larger shed, but will be placed in the same type position with just a slightly less incursion on the side setback. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect the property values of surrounding parcels. It will not it's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice will be served. So again, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
Thank you, Mr. Minkara, for your second. Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
And Mary Ellen McKay also votes in favor. That is a unanimous decision. Mr. and Mrs. Souza, congratulations, your variance has been granted. As we tell each application, there is a 30-day window of appeal on any decision this board makes. Should you have any questions or comments or concerns, please refer back to Mr. Carter Falk at the Planning Department or Ms. Kate Poirier. Thank you for your time tonight and congratulations.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I need to take 2 minutes.
Absolutely. We are going to take a 5-minute break. We will be right back. I'm going to call the September 23rd Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting back to order. And for the record, read in the fourth case. Amy and E. and Nicholas D. Trudell, owners. Michael Regis, applicant. 17 Kipling Street, Sheet B, Lot 372. Requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-44 to exceed maximum fence height, 6 feet permitted, 7.5 feet proposed for a section of, 7 feet 5 inches proposed for a section of a retaining wall towards the back of the house. R18 Zone, Ward 8. Is somebody here? If you'll come to the podium, sir, and give us your name and address for the record.
Hi, Mike Regis, owner of Regis Hearth Products and Landscaping, Hudson, New Hampshire. You mean business address or home address?
Which?
Business.
Business.
Business is 187 Webster Street, Hudson, New Hampshire.
The floor is yours, sir.
We're just in the process of building a retaining wall to solve a drainage issue, and it's requiring us to go 1.5 feet in a small section of the wall. The wall's at 6 feet. I have pictures that I could show you, and there's a section towards the back corner of the home where we need to go to 7.5 feet to reach the desired height that the homeowner needs. You had your inspector come out, and as he saw, everything's being properly built with GeoGrid. Specifications call for 2 feet of crushed stone behind the wall. We're doing 4 to 6 feet. Layers of GeoGrid are stacked at every 2 blocks. So that wall is not moving anywhere. And as you can see from the photo, visually, if you walked up to the wall, you wouldn't even notice the difference of that extra 1.5 feet a block. But it's necessary for us to do it to give the homeowner the desired protection of his house from erosion. We've been doing this for 30 years, and everything is being done to the book, plus. And the only other thing I'd have to say is nobody can see it from the road, and the back of the yard is all wooded, so I don't think it would have any effect on any neighbors.
Okay. Does anyone from the board have any questions? Mr. Courier?
Yes.
I just noticed in the photos you had supplied, there's like the plates on the wall. Is this part of an effort to stabilize the wall? Like
So what was happening with that is
right there, you see those plates above your work.
those are support pieces that tighten the foundation, and once a year the homeowner has to take a torque wrench and tighten those. I wasn't the one who installed those. What was happening is the foundation was being undermined, so they had a company come in to solve that problem. So that's what those plates are for. I had never seen them before on a job. So he tightens those once a year, and that tightens the entire foundation. There's support pieces that go from one end of the foundation to the other. So what we're doing, there was a natural stone wall there that was just overgrown with vegetation, and it was slowly disintegrating. So that's when they decided to change the natural stone wall to the Highland wall block.
Okay, thanks, I appreciate that.
No other questions? Any other questions from the board? I have a question, though I don't know, Mr. Grigas, if you could answer it. If the applicant actually spoke to any of his neighbors?
I do not know that.
See, it was a question.
We have actually, working on this job, we're getting a ton of work from all of his neighbors. Everybody's asking us for estimates, and people have been coming by and complimenting it. You don't see a lot of it from the road. But as you can see from the photos, and I did bring updated photos to show you where we're at right now, if you feel the need to see those.
Yeah, would the board like to see those photos?
I'm all set myself.
I'm
Okay,
all set.
no,
It
everyone's
pretty
fine.
much looks like what you've seen, just a few layers higher.
Okay, no, but, well, must be doing a great job if the neighbors are all liking you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this application? I don't see anything, Kate. Is there anyone present who would like to speak with opposition, comments, questions, or concerns around this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak with comments, questions, concerns, or opposition to this application? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. You may have a seat, Mr. Gregus.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Kanakis, sir.
So I'm in support of the application. It's fairly straightforward in my opinion. I think it meets all the criteria. And as someone who witnessed a retaining wall collapse, likely due to poor drainage from all the rain this year, I'm in support of this.
Mr. Courier.
I'm in support of the application. I spent a lot of time walking around this neighborhood, which is very hilly, a few years ago, and I was surprised, even though it's a pretty established neighborhood, there's a lot of slope, and there's a lot of unstable areas, and so I'm not surprised to see this, and I'm not surprised Mr. Regis is picking up other work in the area, because it almost seems like these houses were just kind of put in without any thought of drainage or rainfall. A little bit of time goes by, and you start seeing some pretty big problems like this. And so I'm in favor of it. And of course, I think it looks good. You don't really notice it's 7.5 feet. So I think it meets all the criteria.
Mr. Boucher, sir.
I also support the application, as Mr. Curry stated. This neighborhood, there's a lot of topography changes in this neighborhood, and especially if you're driving up, I believe, Shelley, and then taking a left on Kipling, right where you get before that, you can tell, it gets really steep there. And then looking at the property, if you look down the side where the wall's going on, you can see how it drops off. So, again, I think it's reasonable and needed, and again, I don't think this affects anybody, so I'm going to support the application.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Minkara.
I also support the application. I think it's pretty clearly needed for the reasonable use of the property. It doesn't impact any surrounding properties. It's, a good distance from the property lines, and it does appear to be being built to meet or exceed applicable standards.
I too concur for all the aforementioned reasons. And I have to say, I'm glad, Mr. Curry, you asked that question on the plates. That was a piece of education that I'm not too sure many of us had. It was very interesting. So, would somebody like to make a motion? Mr. Courier.
I'd like to make a motion. Again, the application, the owner is Amy and Nicholas Trudell. The applicant is Michael Regis, 17 Kipling Street. The request is to a variance from Land Use Code Section 194.4 to exceed the maximum fence height. 6 feet is permitted, 7.5 feet is proposed for a section of retaining wall towards the back of the house. The board finds that the variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions associated with the property. And as our testimony proceeded, the board finds that there's a steep topography change across this property, and there has been undermining of the foundation, and that the proposed work appears to resolve that problem. The board finds that it's within the spirit and intent of the ordinance to approve this request. The board finds that property values will not be negatively, well, I should say we did discuss that, and we felt that it would not be negatively impacted by this request. The board finds that the request is not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served by granting this request. So again, I make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, Mr. Kanakis, thank you, sir, for your second. Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir?
I vote in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Courier votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
And Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
And myself, Mary Ellen McKay, I also vote in favor. Congratulations, Mr. Regis. The variance has been granted, and as we tell all applicants, any decision made by this board is subject to a 30-day appeal process. Should you have any questions, concerns, comments, should the applicants have any, please refer back to Mr. Carter Falk at the Planning Department or Ms. Kay Poirier. Other than that, congratulations and thank you for your application.
Thank you to you all.
Good night, thank you.
Folks as well.
Okay, moving right along, case number 5. Max Properties LLC owner, 18 Granite Street, sheet 44, lot 134, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16-3 for minimum land area, 6,969 square feet required, 5,310 square feet proposed, to subdivide one lot into 2 lots and construct a new 2-family dwelling. This is in the RC Zone, Ward 3. Is somebody here in person or on Zoom for Max Properties?
I'll present it on Zoom if you...
Okay, if you could please state your name and address
Sure.
for the record, sir?
My name is Jeffrey Zoll. I'm an attorney with offices at 221 Main Street in Nashua, and I represent the applicant, Max Properties LLC, which is the owner of the subject property at 18 Granite Street. I think it's also known as 16-18 Granite Street. The property currently consists of a 3-unit building on a lot that measures 16,553 square feet. There are also 3 separate garage structures located at the rear of the lot. You can see those are on the left side of the lot. The applicant will be subdividing the lot into 2 lots as shown on the concept plan, which is attached as Exhibit A to the application and on the screen right now. Lot 134A, which is on the top side, the north side, will have the existing 3-unit building and the garage that is located on the northwest corner of the lot. It'll have a lot size of approximately 11,253 square feet, which is in compliance with the ordinance. Lot 134B will have a lot size of 5,310 square feet, which is in compliance with the ordinance for a single-family house, but the applicant is seeking a variance for a 2-family there. The garage that is at the rear of this lot and the garage that straddles the lot line between the 2 lots will be demolished. They are structurally unsound. The applicant proposes to construct a 3-story duplex building on lot 134B. Each unit will have a 1-car garage on the first floor of the structure, and the second and third floor will be the living area. Pursuant to the dimensional requirements of the ordinance, the maximum density for a duplex in the RC zone is 3,484 square feet per unit, or for a duplex, 6,968 square feet. The applicant's requesting a variance from the dimensional requirements to allow the duplex on lot 134B with 5,310 square feet. Now, Exhibit B attached to the application shows the multiple unit properties that are located in the neighborhood on Granite Street between Summer Street and Lock Street. Of the 17 residential properties in that neighborhood, there are 14 2 or more unit properties. I'll call them multiple unit properties. The second page of Exhibit B lists the densities of those 14 multiple unit properties. Now, excluding the applicant's current lot at 16-18 Granite Street, none of those properties meet the density requirements of the ordinance. And only the property at 23 Granite Street has a density that is a little bit less than the proposed density for the applicant's property. So this chart shows you that 82% of the multiple family properties in the neighborhood have greater densities, lower square footage per unit, than what the applicant is requesting for its property. Granting this variance will not be contrary to the public interest, nor will it, and it will observe the spirit of the ordinance, because the density sought by the applicant will be similar to, and in fact, far less than 82% of the properties in the neighborhood, and will fit in with the character of the neighborhood. Substantial justice will be done by granting the variance because the applicant will be able to use its property in the same manner and with similar, if not less density than the other properties in the neighborhood. There'll be no harm to the general public, nor to any individuals in the neighborhood. There'll be no diminution of value to surrounding properties since the density sought for this lot is no greater and in fact substantially less than the densities of all of the other properties in the neighborhood. Now, the special condition of this property that results in an unnecessary hardship is that the current lot is significantly larger than all of the other properties in the neighborhood. It has 16,608 square feet. That is between 2 and 5 times as large as the other properties in the neighborhood. To subdivide the existing 3-unit building from the lot, it results in a new lot that is only 5,310 square feet. It would be unreasonable and unfair to restrict this new lot to the maximum density requirements of the ordinance when the overwhelming majority of the properties in this neighborhood greatly exceeds the maximum density requirement. Now, going back to the concept plan, if we can, I'd like to point out that there's adequate parking on site. The new lot 134A, which will house the 3-unit building, has the amount of parking that is required by the ordinance. There are 2 spaces in the existing parking garage that will be left in that one, plus there will be 3 on-site parking spaces at the back of the lot where there was or will be, where the garage will be demolished. Now, going to the lot in question, the one that we're seeking the variance for, the requirement is for there are 4 spaces which meets the requirement. Those spaces are each duplex unit will have 1 garage in the first floor or underneath the unit, and 1 parking space in the driveway. So there will be 4 spaces for the duplex, which satisfies the requirements of the ordinance. I have nothing further. We have Tom Zajac here from Hayner Swanson. If there are any technical questions, he's available on Zoom. And Michael Lefevre, who is the principal member of the applicant, is here on Zoom as well.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions? Mr. Courier, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering if, in looking at your data, I was curious what the density data is for lots 44, 119, 104, and -21. I know those are single-family homes. I guess I asked the question also because when I look at a street, I kind of think the whole street, not just the double families on the street. So I was wondering what the data is on those 3.
I don't have that data at hand. I was only concerned with, since there were so many multiple unit properties on this street, 82% of the properties on this street were multiple unit properties. I did not even include the single family because I didn't think they really had any bearing. But I don't have that data for you. I suspect by looking at that map, though, that their sizes are probably pretty close to what the sizes of the other units are. If you can see, 7 Granite Street is a single family and it's very small. As a top 13 looks like 13. That must be 13 Summer Street. Is about the size of the others, but I don't have the data for that, sir.
Okay. I guess in my site walk of the property, I guess my observation was that the street was thin and it was kind of tight to get by. It was quite crowded. And that's what, and I thought, wow, this is, hadn't been down the street before in all the years I've lived here, and I thought, man, this is really tight. And it piqued my curiosity, again, like in the sense of the data you have kind of probably, to me, supports why I experience that, because the density is so great, but it also drove me to want to look at, all the properties or those 3, because it would seem to me, correct me if I'm wrong, you have development capability by right to subdivide and build a single-family home?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And I guess the other thing is, why the 11,000 on the more northerly lot? I mean, couldn't that be a little bit smaller? I mean, if it's 3, I'm just trying to get my calculator going here, 3484.8 times 3, it would seem to me you need 10,450 square feet for the northerly lot at minimum, and that would give you more for the other lot. And could you get your second lot by right just by dividing it differently?
You couldn't get it by right. It would still be shy of the requirement of the ordinance. And I suspect that the reason why this concept plan is drawn that way is you'll note that the driveway for lot 134A pretty much butts up to the proposed property line. So if we raise that property line to the north, it's going to be in the driveway, and the parties really wouldn't want to have an easement for their driveway on the other lot. So I think that was a logical place to put the property line.
Yes.
Tom Zajac is here on Zoom. If he wants to address that issue, I'd ask that he do so.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. This is Tom Zajac, civil engineer with Heener Swanson, 3 Congress Street here in Nashua. Your understanding of that is correct. The total lot would yield 4.75 units by right. We would not be able to get to 5 units total for both lots by moving the lot line north. So we tried to respect and provide that circular driveway in and out as described.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I will ask if there are any questions or anyone here to speak in support of this application. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in support of this application? Is there anyone here present who would like to speak with any comments, questions, concerns, or opposition to this application? And while I have an email, I'm going to ask if there is anyone on Zoom who would like to speak with any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application.
Yes, there is.
Okay. The person who would like to speak, could you please identify yourself? State your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Frank Iavino. I'm at 37 Orange Street with my wife, Paula.
Okay, could you please state your comments?
Oh.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
I'm concerned about the density. As the board members, and I want to thank you for your work and being so conscious that you took a walk down the street. That street is extremely dense. And I'm sure many of those houses were changed before zoning or were approved at a time when we weren't thinking about density. But that density issue is a huge issue up there. And it certainly would affect our property values. And that is my concern. We enjoy going out in the back of our home on 37 Orange Street and enjoying some quietness. And yet to put another two-family up there in a spot that is not large enough for it doesn't seem correct. I understand it's a piece of land and you want to make some money and put that kind of a home there. If you wanted to put a single family, I couldn't say a thing. But yet to put a two-family up there, it doesn't seem correct. Just because something's been done in the past, that's why we have zoning laws, that's why we have rules, that's why we have expectations when I bought my home that the neighborhood would be protected. That's my concern, that there are problems from the past that would hurt my property values and certainly the values of those properties around that surrounding area. It just seems too dense to add another two-family, 3 stories high, that will certainly continue to block and people on either side and to become a problem. So that's my concern. Board, I want to thank you for your work and thank you for the opportunity to speak against. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sure. We have a question for you, sir.
Yes.
Could you repeat your address on Orange Street?
37 Orange Street?
37, okay, got it, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak with any questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? I see a thumb up. What does that mean?
Raising my hand, I'm sorry, I thought I was raising my hand. This is Victor.
Okay. Mr.
Sorry.
Yes. Did you also send in an email? Because I will obviously give you the floor. Just please state your name and your address for the record.
My name is Victor Pepe, and I own a 3-family across the street at number 13 and 15 Granite, as well as the building next to the 134A, which is number 20 Granite. And my concern is, again, density, and really it's a parking issue. I know the current situation there is such that people on Granite Street park their cars now in the driveway, possibly in some of those garages. I'm not sure specifically, but I do see people parking there who do not live there, and I suspect those are renters, parking renters, and I haven't heard anything mentioned this evening as to if rental space will continue to be offered to those people who are now renting. If not, then I suspect they'll have to go find some parking spaces on the street, which is very limited. Well, I just don't think there is any space there. So that's my concern. I was hoping that the proposed development would allow 2 parking spots per unit, and as of this evening, I guess that's what is happening. There's one underneath each unit, and then there's another space in the driveway. But again, there's been no mention as to what will happen to the people who are currently renting when this construction is done. Where will they go? Is there a plan for them, or are they going to just find, do the best they can? And that's essentially it. Those are my comments. So I'd like somebody to address that, if we could have that addressed or some response to that, because I think that could impact the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Pepe. Is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to speak with questions, comments, concerns, or opposition to this application? Seeing none, we also had an email from Mr. Pepe, but he addressed his issues, so it does not need to be read into the transcript, into the because he actually verbalized his comments. Attorney Zoll, you now have 5 minutes, sir, to rebut or respond to the comments that you have heard.
Madam Chair?
Thank you.
Yep.
We have a hand
I'll
raised.
first
We have a
respond
hand
to,
raised. Okay, I can't see.
We have a hand raised by Hope.
Hope Dur, that one there, that she's got her mouse on. Hope Dur, the top left.
I see it. Is Hope, is your hand raised to speak in opposition?
Might have to unmute yourself.
It looks like they're unmuted.
Hope, Dor, are you there?
Do you want to try to have her call a number to see if she can get through? What do you, any suggestions, Mr. Falk, on?
Maybe they can type their comments into the chat bar.
Oh, she could type her comments in the chat box, too. If she's there. Are you there?
Looks like they're having issues with the audio.
If she could
If you can hear us, could you try typing your concerns in the
Yeah.
chat bar, Ms. Dewar? You click on chat like that and type away.
Where it says to everyone. Is she typing?
I can't see. It wouldn't say unless she actually entered it.
Oh, that's true.
You can't see if she's typing or not.
It's not like a text. You can't see the bubbles.
No.
Maybe we can go forward with Mr. Zoll's response.
Yeah,
and if we do hear from her, we could reopen.
Or we could let him re-respond. That's a good
Yeah.
suggestion. Okay, Attorney Zoll, we're going to move forward, and if we hear the other comments, you have 5 minutes, please, to respond to the comments you have heard.
okay, thank you. I'll first respond to Mr. Iovino's comments. He's correct, the street is dense, but the density that we are seeking to have for this property is no worse than the density of the other 13 or 14 multi-unit properties in there, and in fact is much less dense than the other one. So we're not taking a situation of a dense neighborhood and making it worse. It's just fitting in with the density and the character of that neighborhood. I'd also point out that Mr. Iovino's property is on 37 Orange Street, which is not on Granite Street, but rather butts up against the back of the lot. I disagree that it would have an adverse effect on his property values. The density that we're seeking for this new lot is in conformance with the character of that neighborhood and the other densities in that neighborhood, in fact, less dense, and should reasonably have no adverse effect on property values. Mr. Pepe owns the properties at 13-15 Granite Street and 20 Granite Street. He's concerned about the densities. Well, I point out that if you take a look at the chart that I've submitted, the density for 13-15 Granite Street is 1,750 square feet, and the density for 20 Granite Street is 1,673 square feet per unit, whereas the resulting density that we're looking for is substantially less dense than the density of his properties. His properties are much more dense than the ones that we're looking for. Now, parking issues. There's adequate on-site parking to support these two properties that are going to be resulting from this subdivision, so that there will be no parking on the street. They'll have 5 parking spaces, 5 parking spaces available on on a 3-unit building, and 4 parking spaces available on site on the 4-unit building. Now, those garages at the back of the property are to be demolished. They're structurally unsound. There are no cars being parked in those garages at this point. Some of the garages are rented for storage, but the structures are structurally unsound and need to be demolished. I drove by there the other day and I noticed there were a lot of cars parked on that lot. Now, some of those cars are parked there without the approval of the owner. There had been 2, I believe, that with the prior owner, Max Properties recently purchased the property, but 2 had a parking agreement with the prior owner, and they've chose not to continue the parking agreement with the current owner. I suspect that the cost of the parking probably weighed into that decision. But those people are parking there. They're going to have to find other spaces to park. You can't say to this owner that you have to provide parking for the neighborhood. It's not fair. It's not reasonable. It's not right. He has the right to develop his property. If it's a 1-family property that is put in there, and I pointed out that it can be done in compliance with the ordinance, you're still going to have the same issue. There's no parking there for other properties. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Victor Pepe again. Can you hear me?
Mr. Pepe, I'm sorry. We have to follow the rules, and the rules
Sorry.
are that the applicant has the floor.
Okay.
When he is completed, one and only one person who is in opposition may speak.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say, and I didn't really get it all out, was that a single-family unit is permissible by right, and if that is what's developed, you're still going to have the same issue of people are not going to be parking there because it's going to be the single-family house lot. So that's really an unfortunate issue, but it's a non-issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Did Heather?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We have in the chat box, Hope Doer, I apologize if I mangled your last name. She says that the parking situation here is already a nightmare. The property that is proposed to build on is where for 12 years I and many others did park until the new owners bought it and evicted us. We now actually fight for parking. They raised the cost to over $600 a month. We were paying $100. This would be Hope from 11 Granite Street, Nashua, New Hampshire. And she says that she is disabled and sometimes have to park several streets over and walk. If more families are here, the parking could potentially be even worse.
Thank you, Ms. Dorr, for your comments. We had stated that we would allow the applicant to respond to any comments that Hope Dorr had made. So, Mr. Zoll, do you have any comment to
Yes.
her comments?
Yes, the only comment I have is just to reiterate what I said a minute ago, was that there'll be no parking on that site no matter what the result of this application is. If there's a single family that's built there, there's still not going to be any parking on the site. It's unfortunate for the people who live there, who have been parking there for 12 years, that parking won't be available to them, but it won't be available to them either way. And that the parking for the units that are going to be built there will all be on site, and it won't impact the parking on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, one, and only one of the people in opposition can speak. And it's hard, you're all on Zoom, for you all to make a determination. Mr. Pepe, you had said you had something else to say. If you would like to say it, please, this is your opportunity. You have 5 minutes in which to state your comment.
Okay, I don't need 5 minutes, but I thank you for the time. All I was looking to do was elevate the impact of the new building. That's all, so that it was understood by the board what the impact would be, so that an informed decision could be made. Whether it's a one-family or a two-family, I agree with Mr. Saul. If the new owner decides he doesn't want to rent out parking, then that's his or her right to do, and, so be it. But, with the new construction, it sounds like it will create a parking issue on that street, make the parking even tighter, and I just think that ought to be considered. I'm not against anybody, earning some money, making some money, or new construction, or any of that. My concern is, again, with parking, in that it's understood by the board what that impact might be. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to open the public meeting. Mr. Courier.
So I've been struggling with this application, continue to do so. I'd first like to get out that I agree with Mr. Zoll on the parking situation. It should not be beholden to his client to provide parking for anyone. And so those comments, by Ms. Durr, which I appreciate hearing, and Mr. Pepe, they don't persuade me, or I should say legally, I don't think they hold any water to prevent, development of the more southerly lot. I guess what I'm struggling with is I find this to be a dense street. One of the folks there, Mr. Frank Ivanetti, I think confirmed that in what, as somebody who knows it well versus me who visited it twice to review this application. But I'm concerned that there are 3 single-family homes on this street, and I think that's part of the neighborhood. And those 3 single-family homes seem to have reasonable density, but we have no data here. So I feel it's skewed statistics to just compare it to the double or triple family homes on the street, not versus, all the homes on the street. And when I think about, I agree that the bulk of the homes are overly dense and have a greater density than what's being proposed here. But I don't know if that alone should override the zoning to say, well, because there's a lot of higher density ones on the street, this is okay to be higher density also. To me, it's more of a rationale to maintain the zoning density. So I'm struggling to find support because of that situation, but I'm looking forward to hearing 4 other opinions from the board.
Mr. Boucher, sir.
Clearly, I recognize that this neighborhood is a higher dense neighborhood. I do believe that is the character. I think that taking at face value Attorney Zoll's statistic that 82% of the properties are multifamily and fit in this category, I think that, to me, that's not overwhelming, but that's the substantial evidence that, this is the character of the neighborhood. Again, we could go over a street over and it's different, right? But in this neighborhood, it's that. Looking at the lot, I had the same question Mr. Curry had. Could some maneuvering of a back property line achieve, make it so that if I write, they could build a duplex? Again, I think they're 400, 500, 600 square feet off. I do believe, though, that, again, from the front of the property, it meets all dimensional requirements, fits in the envelope, so that, I don't think that if they were able to garner that property from the other side, if it was available, what I'm saying is, I don't think you know the difference one way or the other, whether or not it's short or not. So, again, I appreciate, again, the issue there on the street, but those are struggling with parking, and again, I do agree, it's unfortunate, but again, it's not the landowner's responsibility to provide parking for the neighborhood. I'm sorry for those folks that have to deal with that, but that's the way it is. And the only thing I would say to the woman that was disabled, had to walk a couple blocks, I would just suggest that maybe they talk to the alderman, maybe they can get them to sponsor a handicap spot or something, for some parking for her. So, a spot that she could take advantage of on that street. But with that, I'll just leave it at that. I'd like to hear what else is said.
Mr. Minkara, sir.
I am struggling with this one somewhat. I do accept that what's proposed is certainly consistent with the density in the neighborhood, and I think that's true for the single-family homes as well. Just looking at the dimensions of the single-family home lots, they're also quite dense. So this is probably less dense overall than the existing character. I also think that there is a public interest in removing dilapidated garage structures that are currently not being used, at least for parking. And when it comes to the impact of some surrounding uses, will there be impacts from the construction of a new two-family? Yes. But I'm also looking at positive impacts from removal of those structures. Where I'm struggling is whether or not, because this lot could be subdivided and a single-family home could be developed, is development of a single-family home as opposed to a duplex not a reasonable use of the property? And I'd be interested in hearing some more opinions on that. I'd just also add, yes, I agree the parking for commercial use of this lot for parking is not an issue, and the fact that it does comply with the parking requirements, in fact, it would exceed them on the larger lot, for me, resolves the parking issue. So it just really comes down to, is a single-family use on the lot an unreasonable use on this property?
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis.
I agree with Mr. McCara, where I'm struggling in that a single-family unit could be put in, and so realistically, the only hardship I see is a financial one, which really isn't something we can consider. So I'm leaning against the application.
Thank you. And myself, I seem to struggle with the same things. I agree with you, Mr. Minkara, the taking down of the garage is a good piece, but the use of the land is a one-family. By right, it could be done. And is that something that we should ignore, or should we not ignore? That bothers me. The other piece that bothers me is something Mr. Currier brought up around the density and the explanation that so many other lots have that density. Is it okay because everybody jumped off the bridge that I should jump off too? The density, do we make it worse? Do we leave it as it is, or do we try to make it better? Do we stick to the rules and the laws? So I struggle with this one myself. I'm leaning more against this application than I'm like Mr. Kanakis in that. I struggle to find support for this application. Does the board need more discussion? Does it want to try a motion? Mr. Currier.
I just wanted to address Mr. Minkara's question about, like, is it unreasonable? to have a single-family home on this lot. I mean, I don't think so. I mean, there's a single-family, two single-family homes kind of right across the street and one on the corner. I mean, if there was a single-family home, I just can't imagine people going, gosh, this is so out of character, it should be a two-family. You know, I don't know if you, I just, so I don't think it's unreasonable, just my opinion, that you say, you know, while it's predominantly two families on the street, to think that a single family is out of character. I mean, but that's just me. But you asked a question, it's a good question, and that's just for my 2 cents on your question.
And that's a good response. I'm comfortable.
The will of the board is, do we want to attempt to make a motion?
I mean, I'm not exactly sure where each person would vote, but I guess I'm not finding support for it. I'm willing to make a motion of denial and see where it goes.
Well, then I think that that's a valid motion. Thank you, sir.
So I'm making a motion on behalf of 18 Granite Street. Again, the request is a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-16, Table 16.3 for minimum land area. 6,969 square feet are required. 5,310 square feet are proposed to subdivide one lot into two lots and construct a new two-family dwelling. I make a motion to deny this because I think perhaps a majority of the board feels that the variance is not needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property. Given the special conditions of the property, what we've discussed and I think agreed with is that there's some rundown garages on this overly large lot for this street. But the board, I think, in majority finds that there is development potential by a single-family home on subdividing the lot and having a single-family home that will meet the code. I think the board recognizes that the majority of the homes are two-family, but there are single-family homes, and that a single-family home on this proposed lot would not be out of character with the neighborhood. I think the board finds that by the denial of a two-family home, is still within the spirit and intent of the ordinance because a single-family home is available by right. I think in terms of property value, I think the board finds that given the high density on this street, having a variance that would allow more density would be a negative impact to the area. I think the board finds that the request is contrary to the public interest, and substantial justice would not be served by granting this request. So I make a motion to deny.
Do I? Thank you, Mr. Minkara, for your second. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote on the motion to deny?
Mr. Boucher votes not in favor of the denial.
Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir, on the motion to deny?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor of the motion to deny.
Mr. Kanakis, sir, how do you vote in favor of the motion to deny?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor of the motion to deny.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir, on the motion to deny?
I vote, Mr. Courier votes in favor of denial.
And Marion McKay also votes in favor to deny. Attorney Zog, your motion for your request for the variance has been denied by this board. As we tell everyone, any decision by this board is subject to a 30-day appeal. Should you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please see Mr. Falk at the Planning Department or reach out to Ms. Poirier, also in that department. Thank you very much for your application. And we'll move on to case number 6. The owner is Eric Tremblay. The address is 1 Glasgow Road. Eric Tremblay, owner, 1 Glasgow Road, Sheet C, Lot 575, requesting variance from Land Use Code Section 190-192C to exceed maximum driveway width 24 feet permitted, 33 feet existing. An additional 15 feet proposed for a total of 48 feet. This is in the R9 zone, Ward 9. Is there someone here to speak on that application, or are they, okay, someone is present. Please address the board with your name and your address for the record.
Eric Tremblay, 1 Glasgow Road. So this variance requested is to exceed the current driveway width of the 33 feet up to 48, which is an increase of 15 feet, to accommodate a proposed detached garage. One thing to note, this proposal isn't requesting to expand the current width opening to the road. This driveway would start 12 feet up from the street to the proposed area and meet into the existing driveway, currently maintaining a 33-foot opening to that road. The end goal would be to provide a 560 square foot area to allow entrance into this driveway. This proposed location on the property is the only location that would support a detached garage.
Is that your testimony that you are presenting to the board? Are
Yes.
you good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Does any member of the board have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Courier, sir.
On the drawing, actually, that Ms. Poirier still has up, just to make sure I understand, you're saying the proposal is not to have the asphalt in front of the garage go to the street, so does it go to like that rocky-looking section at the bottom? And because wasn't sure, I don't think I understand what you were saying, that it would come out from the garage but not extend to the street.
So basically, that picture you see up there, it wouldn't extend to the, so it wouldn't open the width of that entry to the road.
Are you saying it wouldn't be where this is right here?
Correct. So that location that I think you're pointing at would be 12 feet from the street to that proposed driveway location, which would basically go to the property line and not exceed that.
So on this drawing we have here, the mic can't pick me up. That to me looks like your property line, and then you're saying it's 12 feet to the street from that?
No, from the street to that property line would not be what the request for the driveway would be. It would just be from that dotted area, I guess, on that plan.
Okay.
That would be the city right-of-way.
Below that line?
Yes, the city right-of-way and then the street.
We still measure the driveway width all within the front yard setback as well.
Okay.
So the actual street, I guess if you look to the right where it shows that gravel, the street is, south of that.
South of the
so-
gravel.
So there would be a 12-foot, difference from that street to that proposed driveway location to allow a vehicle to enter that garage.
Okay. I guess the other question I have is, was there any thought of skinnying down if you build I agree with the garage location, that if you're going to build a detached garage, that's really the only place you got, so you're kind of over there on the left. Was there any thought of trying to meet closer to the code or skinnying down? If you're going to be adding to the left, maybe say skinnying down on the right, such that it's just less of an ask than the 48 feet, which is, twice as much as the 24 feet. I mean,
So if it was to move to that right-hand side where that deck is, it's not it's more of a four-season porch. It would basically obstruct that a little bit. I think I wouldn't allow them to get entry to the backyard with, a lawnmower or whatever it may be. Ideally, it would be greater to go bigger with it, but that's the reason why I ended up proposing a 15 by 22 garage to allow entry to that backyard still.
Okay, well, would there be doors on the front and back?
Of the-
So you could walk to the left or right of it?
Yeah, so there's steps going up, because this location is basically, it's up on elevation. There's a lot of, structurally, the property is built on what I believe to be ledge. So it's very aesthetically difficult to do the garage anywhere else on that property because of the elevations.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I took a look at your place. I usually drive by them all, and so I'm, familiar with it, and there's topography there. All right, thank you. I'm all set.
Mr. Boucher?
Can I ask a question, Mr. Carter?
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Falk, sorry. Mr. Falk, just so I understand correctly, current street opening that exists is not going to be expanded, right? We're just in that, he's just widening the driveway not far enough back, so that's why he's here for this variance.
Right.
For this variance, okay. So street opening remains the same.
Just past that and drive
Yeah,
in a
it's just
little
that he's not far enough back before the turn-in, right?
Right, we measure the driveway width from side to side, all within the front yard setback.
Right.
After the front yard setback, it can widen out and go farther than
Okay.
allowed.
So again, street opening width remains as it currently is today?
I believe so.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's no, so just to ask the applicant, so again, your testimony is, just to be clear for everybody, is that you're not adding any new pavement width that connects to the street?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Boucher. Mr. Courier?
On the plan here, if Kate wants to switch over to that, thank you. There's a dimension 20.5 feet, which is proposed from the front of the garage to the city right away. So my question is, what's the dimension from, the front of the garage to those rocks, if we want to call it that, where the asphalt would end?
So from the back of the garage to the asphalt?
No, from the front of the garage to the, say, the...
Oh, okay. Yes, I do have that. 21 feet.
All right.
Which again, wouldn't exceed past that property line or make that existing opening to the road any larger than it already is.
All right. I guess it's kind of confusing me. Maybe I'll take the mic with me, and that way. So we have from here to here is 20.5 feet. You with me on that?
Yes.
So the distance from the front of the garage to where the asphalt ends has got to be less than 20.5 feet. By this, I'm saying that's maybe, I'm guessing 16 or 17 feet. And I was just looking for what that number is.
Just visually, it's a scale drawing, it's probably 15, 16 feet.
Yeah, I don't have that exact measurement.
Okay.
Appears to be about 16 feet.
Okay. But I think what it gets to is Mr. Boucher's question is, how far down is the asphalt going to go? It's, say if it's 16 feet, that clarifying it's not going to be going beyond that to the street.
Right, and I just wanted to get to the point that we're not adding any more opening to the street. Yeah, and the understanding is that we're still in that front setback, and that's why he's here. I just want to make it clear that we weren't, the applicant wasn't going to open up to the street at any time.
Okay. All right, thanks, I'm all set.
Does anyone else on the board have any questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of this application?
Did have an email.
I do.
Okay.
Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay, I do have two emails. The first one states that I want to read into the record. Hi, City of Nashua Planning Department. Please find my comments below in regard to the above hearing. And that is the hearing on 1 Glasgow Road. Urson Goke. Please forgive me if I've mispronounced. Address 3 Glasgow Road, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03062. No objections at this time. Thank you. I also have another email from a Ryan B. Ackerman, to whom it may concern. I write in support of Eric Trembley's variance. This matter is being discussed tonight by the Nashua Zoning Board of Adjustment. I live adjacent to Eric Trembley, 1 Glasgow Road, at 10 Aberdeen Lane, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03062. Eric is requesting a variance for a wider driveway than the land use code dictates. As his next-door neighbor, I have no concerns regarding this variance. Eric and his family maintain the property with the utmost care. Their home stands out in our neighborhood and makes the place better. After a quick drive-by, anyone would say the same. Eric takes pride in his property. I can understand the restriction on wide driveways to prevent homes from looking like car dealerships, but this is not a concern with Eric and the Trembleys. He would never allow his home or property to look less than excellent. I completely support the variance for Eric Trembley at 1 Glasgow Road. Thank you, Ryan B. Ackerman. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak with questions, comments, concern, or opposition to this application? Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak with questions, comments, concern, or opposition to this application? I don't see anyone either. Therefore, I'm going to close the public hearing and open the public meeting. Mr. Boucher, sir.
I'm going to support the application. Again, during my visit to the neighborhood, it's clear on what the applicant wants to do. I just wanted to verify that we weren't going to open to the street. Again, I'll also note that this is a short street in a loop, and again, I don't think that there is any issues that would cause the neighborhood a problem with having the extra width driveway here, because I assume that it's only traveled by the 4 or 5 residents that live on, that practically live on this street. So with that, I'm going to support the application.
Thank you. Mr. Minkara.
I also support the application. Certainly a garage is a reasonable and customary accessory use to a single-family home. This garage is modest in size, and there really appears to be no alternative. And there really is no, if you have a garage, you have to get to it somehow. So that really does necessitate the expanded driveway.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis.
I'm also in support of the application.
Mr. Courier.
I'm not in support of the application, and as I was been struggling to clarify like the length of this driveway, I just want to throw out a point. If we take a look at, and I ask all board members if you could indulge me and take a look at this. So the driveway, the garage is 15 feet wide, and it says proposed 560 square feet of driveway expansion. If you take 15 feet wide times the 20.5 feet we have on our plan, that's 307 square feet. it's a lot less than 560. If we take the 560 and divide that by 15 feet wide, that's 37 feet long, not 20.5 feet long. And while we assume this is drawn to scale, 37 feet would be clear to the street. So my math says if we take 20.5 times 15, we're at 307 square feet. And I wouldn't even think it would be that much asphalt, because the asphalt proposed here is shown to be at an angle and then end where we see those rocks. So I'm confused. I feel I'd like to have the applicant clarify for me where the 560 comes from versus 307. Maybe I've got this all wrong, but I think my math is right, and but help me out.
We could certainly vote to have the applicant come back. I think that the way I looked at it and what I realized was I believe that because it's in the front yard setback, I think that number comes from, like it goes to the street, like I have to ask for this amount. But clearly on the plan, it's not asking for 560 square feet, just by the simple rough calculations you're doing, Mr. Currier. So I think what it was is, again, is because the variance we're here, because we're in the front yard setback, it's almost like it was applied for, like we have to apply for the full square footage, like that included it to the street, but that's not the case. And certainly, again, we can go whatever way that we feel, but, I'd be, if I were to make a motion, and it made a difference, I would specifically say, again, the street opening changed more than 33 feet, and it would be to plan as drawn, with a statement that the 560 square feet, as we know, is not an accurate number by rough calculations or something like that. So I think, in my mind, it's clear to me, but that doesn't mean it's clear to somebody else. So if you feel, I would support your motion if you want to have the applicant come back to explain that to us, excuse me. And maybe I'm assuming something that's not correct in that calculation, so.
Mr. Minkara?
I would just say we could certainly do that, but frankly, that doesn't make any difference to me. If the 560 square feet is in error, perhaps it is, perhaps it's 330, that doesn't affect my, support at all. To me, what they're asking for is, a variance to allow the driveway to be expanded to 48 feet.
Mr. Kanakis?
I'm thinking that 560 number includes the garage. If you had the 15 by 22, you get the 330 feet, and with the about 220 from the rough guesstimate based on the kind of odd shape, that gets you just about to that 560. I'm assuming that's where the error comes from.
I'd like to make a motion to just have the applicant clarify that. I think that, as things move forward and an inspector goes out, he'll be wondering, what's the request here? Is it 560? Is it 20.5? What am I doing? I think we just heard is unclear to the board. So I'd like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing and just ask the applicant that question.
Madam Chair.
I'll second that motion to clarity and transparency is always good. Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote on that motion to reopen?
I vote in favor.
Mr. Minkara?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Boucher?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Courier?
I vote in favor.
And Mary Ellen McKay votes in favor. So we will reopen the public hearing, and if we could have the applicant come back, Mr. Tremblay, if you would come back, please, to answer that question. Could you come up to the podium? Again, state your name and address for the record. And I will once you've stated your name and your address again, I'm going to give the floor to Mr. Courier so he can clearly articulate what it is that we are looking for.
Eric Tremblay, 1 Glasgow Road. Do I have a chance to speak?
Yeah, you are going to speak. That's exactly why you're here,
Okay.
sir.
You know, I think that, yeah, again, just to re-ask the question, is the dotted area that says proposed 560 square feet of driveway expansion, what I'm seeing is 15 feet wide there by less than 20.5 feet long. So where does the 560 number come from?
So again, I'm not the surveyor. I paid a professional to do this, so I would assume that 560 would be that dotted area. I'm not sure if that, includes, the driveway, the proposed garage area. At the end of the day, I think my biggest concern when I was proposing this was to not exceed that driveway width to the road. So
Yeah.
it's just, I'm looking for enough driveway to get a vehicle to kind of curve in there to properly park a vehicle in the garage.
Okay,
So-
thank you for that.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Mr.
Quick
Paul.
comment, if I may. We generally don't ever really look at driveways as 560 square feet or 300 square feet or any number of square feet. We really only look at the width of it. That's the number that really comes into play more, is how many feet you have from the property line going to the front yard setback. That's the only number we're really concerned with, as well as like the distance of the driveway to an intersection, which can't exceed 50 feet. As far as the number, those 560 square feet, that could be the entire driveway area, because the driveway goes past the front yard setback up to that walkway towards the deck. We think the request is, basically just to exceed the 24-foot wide driveway width. He wants, his application was up to 48 feet, so that's really what the request is. In staff's view, it's really just that width. The square footage of it, it's just a number that we really don't have in our ordinance. So we don't really get involved with that too much.
All right, I'm all set.
Okay, thank you very much
you.
for coming back. If that's the issue, it says right here also on the variance requested, proposing driveway expansion due to proposed garage, roughly 560 square feet. So Mr. Kanakis may have hit the nail on the head. Yes, Mr. Boucher?
So again, if I would make a motion, and if it would help Mr. Currier, I don't know if it would, I would certainly make a motion with special condition that the driveway remain at 33 feet, doesn't expand more, and that the additional asphalt does not come past the property line, so that turn-in, I don't know exactly how to word, but basically, there would be no asphalt on the city right-of-way. So basically, after the property line, the turn-in is fine, however they want to do that, but basically, there would be no asphalt added on the city right-of-way, so basically from the property line in.
I think that would cover the mystery of the 560 square feet. I would appreciate that.
Okay.
And Mr. Boucher, since he requested 48 feet width now with the extra 15, would the motion then be, because you said the driveway would remain
No,
at 33?
So this motion is exactly the way it's written, and because the 48 feet is, again, it's still in the front yard setback.
Okay.
So it's within this property line, but still in front yard setback. So it would be a special condition that I would add.
Right, the street opening wouldn't exceed 33 feet.
The existing.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you would like me to
Please,
make a motion?
absolutely.
I'd like to make a motion for Eric Tremblay, owner of 1 Glasgow Road, Sheet C, Lot 575, requesting a variance from Land Use Code Section 190-192, Section C, to exceed a maximum driveway width 24 feet permitted, 33 feet existing, an additional 15 feet proposed, for a total of 48 feet. It's in the R9 zone, Ward 9. Variance is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use property to give them the special conditions of property, and the benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method reasonably feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the variance. Again, the special condition of property is that this is really the only place to place this one-car garage, and there's some topography challenges on the right side of the property. It is within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. It will not adversely affect property values of surrounding parcels. It's not contrary to public interest, and substantial justice would be served. I'm going to add two special conditions. First special condition will be that the driveway width, the existing 33 feet, street opening width of the driveway will remain the same. So there will be no additional opening to the street. The second special condition will be that the proposed 48 feet that is being asked for, that addition of pavement or driveway to accommodate the new garage will be done on the applicant's property, so the property line in, so there'll be no additional pavement on the city right-of-way. And with that, I make a motion to approve the area variance.
And is there a second to that motion? Mr. Kanakis, thank you. Okay. Mr. Boucher, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Courier votes in denial.
And Mary Ellen McKay votes in favor. That vote is 4-1. Mr. Tremblay, your variance has been granted. As we've stated all evening, any decision of this board can and is subject to an appeal, could be. You have up to 30 days. If you have questions, comments, concerns, please re-refer back to Mr. Carter Falk in the Planning Department, or reach out to Ms. Poirier. They will help you answer your questions. And congratulations, your variance has been granted. Thank you.
Who seconded that?
Mr. Kanakis.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Take 2 minutes again.
Yes, I was going to ask if we wanted to take a break prior to the board's in recess for 5 minutes. case into the record.
Second to last.
No,
Oh, is there a change?
the last, the,
Number 7.
the seventh case was tabled.
Oh, okay.
So we are going to the last case of the evening. Owner, John J. Flatley Company, address 200 Innovative Way. John J. Flatley Company owner, 200 Innovative Way, Sheet A, Lot 798, requesting the following variances from Land Use Code, Section 190-103, Table 103-10:1. Maximum, oh no, the 10. 1, maximum sign area, 150 square feet permitted. Each face of dual-sided billboard sign proposed for 672 square feet each, for a total of 1,344 square feet. 2, maximum height, 30 feet permitted, 50 feet proposed, and 3, to permit the proposed billboard sign to have an electronic message center where electronic message centers are not permitted, and 4, variance from Land Use Code Section 190-103 D2B to allow a billboard 290 feet from a residential zone where a minimum of 400 feet is required. This is in the PI zone, Ward 8. And may I have your name and address for the record? You will have 15 minutes to present your case, sir.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. My name is John Sokol. I'm an attorney at Hinckley Allen at 650 Elm Street in Manchester, New Hampshire. I'm here representing the John Flatley Company. With me tonight is Doug Richardson, VP of Planning and Acquisitions. The property is located at 200 Innovative Way. It's on the west side of the Daniel Webster Highway in between exits 1 and exit 2. The John Flatley Company owns most of the land on the west side of the highway in this location. And the land is really shielded from view of the highway by topography and a large ledge outcropping. I drove past the site again tonight, went north, went south. Near the site, there are two tall billboard signs, one for the Radisson Hotel and one for Homewood Suites. And we did submit a picture that showed what this sign would look like from the highway in context to those signs. The site is really a hybrid sign. It will be used to advertise on-premises users of the property owned by the Flatley Company. It's about a 300-acre site, if not more, behind the ledge outcroppings. It will also be used to advertise other off-premises users, also on property owned by the Flatley Company. And lastly, it will be used to advertise unrelated uses to the Flatley Company for a charge. And I did want to point out that billboards, off-premises advertising signs, are located in this zoning district. And so what we're really talking about are the dimensions of the sign and the proposed digital graphics. And we're requesting variances for height, size, proximity to a residential RC district, and for the electronic messaging panel. And on their face, the requests seem pretty large, and I just wanted to put those in context. The proposed sign panels each are 14 by 18 square feet. That's about 672 square feet. This is a national standard for off-premises sign panels for highways like this. And on the other side of the Daniel Webster Highway, there is a billboard sign that, the graphics change. It's not electronic or digital. The panels on that sign, which right now are advertising 2 automotive uses. A little while ago when we took some pictures preparing for this, there was a Dunkin' Donut and something called Slip Happens, when it had a big banana on it. The panels for this proposed sign are the same size as the panels for that sign. So the goal here is to make it noticeable but not distracting to motorists. As far as the height, The large ledge outcropping requires a tall sign to get over the outcropping so that it can be visible from the highway. We've proposed 50 feet where 30 are allowed. The Homewood Suites sign is 60 feet tall, and the Radisson Hotel is 90 feet tall. So the actual height of the sign, though it's in excess of what's allowed under the zoning ordinance, is smaller than the two signs that it's closest proximity to. One thing we didn't pick up on when we originally submitted our application was that it was within 400 feet of the C2 zoning district. And the reason we didn't pick up on that is we were measuring the distance from the edge of the land. The zoning district runs right down the middle of the highway. So if you measure from the middle of the land, you comply. And if you measure from where the actual zoning district is, you're 290 feet away. And so the sign has been angled slightly. We do not believe it will have any negative effect on the residential property across the Daniel Webster Highway. Certainly no more so than the existing two signs that are in the same proximity. As far as the electronics and the digital, I've read some minutes of zoning board hearings here in Nashua. I know this is a topic that has been of some debate for the board. And we are requesting that graphics be allowed, not just text, not just logos, but also graphics. But I want to stress that they're going to be still graphics. There's not going to be any Las Vegas type flamingos, no battling ships, no movement. You'll see a good crisp, clean image, and then the image will change and you'll see another one. And that would not happen any more frequently than every 5 seconds. No scrolling, no optical illusions, no flashing, no fading, just good crisp image shown and then instantaneously changing for the next image. And again, there will be advertising for off-premises uses, but again, that is allowed under this zoning district. The sign will be managed and controlled by the Flatley Company. It's not going to be outsourced or managed by anyone else, so they will have control over it. They are going to control its brightness so that it's not too bright. And the brightness of the sign will adjust with the ambient light, so it will be adjust during daylight conditions and nighttime conditions. These signs, the digital signs, are just more efficient and safe than manually changeable reader boards. And frankly, they're becoming more attractive than manually changeable reader boards. And those types of signs are fast becoming, ancient ancestors of these electronic message centers. The proposed location is really at the gateway of the city. It's in between exits 1 and 2. Applicant is committed to make it very high quality. There would be no advertising for so-called sin products, alcohol or tobacco. And in a lot of jurisdictions that allow these signs, there's a community benefit or a public benefit component. And in speaking with the applicant, provided that the applicant receives all necessary state and local permits for the sign, there is a state permit process that's required in addition to the local. The applicant would propose to provide to the city of Nashua 5 hours per month for non-commercial community service, community benefits, city benefits, similar to the Performing Arts Center that's presently under construction and has gained some positive press recently. And even though 5 hours a month doesn't sound like a lot, it's a total of 3,000 distinct 6-second images per month. So we did propose that to the city. We sent a proposal to the Economic Development Department earlier today, and but we would accept that as a condition of the approval, and it's an offer just because we think that is a good use of the sign at a prominent location where it is for community service and public service benefits. And happy to answer questions. That's it in a nutshell. I went through the variance criteria in the application. Happy to go through them again if people want to, but I'd prefer to answer questions or talk about it.
Mr. Courier.
Yes, Attorney, is it Silbo, S-I-L-B-O?
Sokol, S-O-K-U-L.
S-O-K-U-L. Sokol, yeah. You had mentioned that there's a sign on the other side of the highway, I guess, that had like a Dunkin' Donuts or Slip or something. Could you?
Right now, it's two messages related to types of cars or automobiles.
On the other side of Route 3?
Yes.
I guess I don't remember that. Where, could you help clarify where? I didn't know if you meant maybe on Daniel Webster Highway versus maybe Route 3.
It's near the Lowe's.
Just north of the Lowe's
Okay.
on the other side of the highway. It's also a V-shaped sign.
I did bring pictures of the southbound and northbound views of that sign, if that would be of interest to you.
Yeah, it would be great if you could.
And again, as I drove by today, these sign images have changed since when the
Yeah,
pictures
you
were
could
taken. But
just give it to Mr.
that's the
Kanakis,
northbound. That's the
and he will.
southbound.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Attorney Sokol. Yes, Mr. Mancara. Oh, were you done, Mr. Courier?
Well, I guess another question was, the two signs on on your side, the two hotel signs, they were granted relief because, in part, because they're deemed like as a necessary help to travelers. Like it's late at night, somebody needs to find a hotel, and that was specifically just recently, I mean, the Tara sign, or what I call the Tara, has been there for probably a generation, but the rather new one was specifically for that reason. And the on premises, or when you had mentioned the different uses, some would be off premises, but some would be on, like what would be the businesses that you'd be doing that are on your site?
Well, I think there's some office uses, some retail. I think this board recently approved a brewery for the site. You know, it's quite an expanding mixed-use project, and so for any of the tenants or occupants of that property.
Okay. I guess this is maybe an opinion, but since we're discussing, I'd throw it out now. I mean, when the Lowe's sign was presented, I voted in opposition for that. I can't speak to that sign, but I guess I agree. This is a gateway view shed. I mean, I've heard often, and I concur, that when folks drive over the state line and they climb and come around the bend and you see Pack-Monadnock, that is the quintessential New Hampshire. And I agree, and I've heard comments that when you have billboards proliferating, it's not what New Hampshire is. I kind of feel that way, but speak to that, tell me how maybe I have that wrong, or why I would find difficulty with the sign proposal for that view shed.
Yeah, so, and I drive that roadway a lot, and I'm not going to tell you you're wrong that Pack-Monadnock is not a pretty view. But the goal here would be to take advantage of the proximity to exits 1 and 2. The first exit off the highway into the state of New Hampshire and in Nashua, and to really take advantage of some of what Nashua has right there at that location that is invisible from the highway. And, you know, one of the goals of the sign ordinances are to promote economic development in the city of Nashua. And with all that's going on in that area that can't be seen, We think that's consistent with that objective and would be done in a way, again, as you can see on the picture, it's not out of proportion with the other signs in that location, and would be done in a very tasteful, thoughtful way that would be consistent with what you want to see, but also give a little juice to the exits 1 and 2 for things that can't be seen from the highway.
And finally, like a little bit south of us in Tingsboro, there's a couple, I think, 2 new billboard signs. I know there's one that's advertising like Sunshine Paving and Barmakian Jewelers. I think this sign would be pretty much equivalent to what we see when we're, maybe 5 miles south of the border there. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that's all for now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Minkara?
If I heard you correctly, if I understand correctly, part of the intent of this sign is to advertise goods, products, or services other than those that are on site. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Could you speak to the reason why that's being proposed?
The use is allowed in that district, and it's a prime location to do that type of advertising. Again, for profit, tastefully done, but also with a community service piece attached to it.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Mr. Boucher, Mr. Kanakis, either of you have any questions?
Yeah, as Mr. Richardson pointed out to me, it gives some of the local businesses in the immediate area an opportunity to advertise from the highway that they don't presently have.
So these advertisements will not be for any businesses on the applicant's property? Or will some be?
Some will be.
But you don't know exactly what others will be?
It would change over time.
Okay,
I mean, that's the purpose of a billboard.
okay. I think I understand. Mr. Boucher?
Just to reiterate, what did you say, again, that you would not advertise? I think you specifically said what they were
So,
not.
I guess what people so-called sin uses, alcohol, tobacco, marijuana.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Courier, I'm very familiar with the billboards south. I drive all the way near Boston, so there's another one in Chelmsford. They and again, I don't have any qualms one way or another. I just see them. I think they work well, but there's some interesting advertisement on the one in Lowell. There's, some other advertisements that, may, like kind of what you're saying, that you wouldn't advertise.
I hear what you're saying, and we probably wouldn't do those either.
Okay. Just asking you, if there was a move to make a motion to approve this stipulation, would be in the effect of how would we achieve, or could we even stipulate something like that for advertisement? I don't even know if we can do that. What's your opinion on that?
We could put together a development agreement with the city of Nashua that would restrict content.
We would accept limitations like that.
Okay.
We would not challenge that.
Okay. Yeah, it's something that I'm just curious about, not for me making that specific, would be more of what the city would I guess, accept as good advertising. What they would want us to be at the gateway of the state.
With his, 300 acres under development and growing, I think the applicant's interests and the city's interests are aligned for the quality of what's going to go on that billboard sign.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's no further questions from the board? Thank you. Is anyone in the audience here to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, is anyone on Zoom here to speak in favor of this application? I don't see anything. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition with questions, comments, or concerns around this application? Is there anyone on Zoom with any comments, questions, concerns around this, or opposition to this application? Hearing none, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to open the public meeting. Mr. Minkara.
So I am struggling with this. I feel one way about a sign. I get the necessity for a larger sign in this location. I'm not troubled with it being electronic, message sign. But what I'm troubled with is advertising goods, products, services, businesses that are not on the site. To me, there is a logic in saying that we have this very large site here with multiple uses on it. And, advertising that and making people aware of what's there, I get that. You go further up into Merrimack, you see the premium outlets, there's a reason why that sign is there. So, to me, there's a logic in that, but I'm definitely struggling with allowing off the advertising of goods, products, services, businesses that are not on the site, and I think that could actually cause confusion if you're mixing Innovation Way and what's happening there with something that's entirely unrelated. Is that signaling to people that all of a sudden Dunkin' Donuts pops up, there must be a Dunkin' Donuts there. So I find troublesome. I'll just add that I'm not at all interested in trying to regulate content. I think we get down to a very dangerous territory when we start talking about regulating speech. So I have no interest in putting conditions on sin, advertising, et cetera. I wouldn't want to go there. And I also have no interest in a requirement of any minimum amount of public service messaging. For me to support it, I think there would have to be a limitation that whatever is advertised on that is limited to businesses that are on site.
Thank you. Mr. Kanakis.
I'd like to agree with what Mr. McCarthy said. I'd be curious to hear maybe from Carter as to what our ability to stipulate as to any conditions regarding the sign, or if we could get some more information on that.
As far as the content?
Or just our ability to stipulate as to conditions of the sign in general.
Well, we really can't regulate the content. Just the sign ordinance is content neutral for commercial signs. The only thing the board really can do is the height, the area, the setback, the distance from the residential zone. Those are items in our ordinance that they are asking for variances from. The other one is to allow a electronic message sign, which would be the entire structure, where it's not permitted in section 190-103. There's a table in there that lists all the different characteristics of a billboard or an off-premises sign. And, the applicant has asked for 4 variances against 4 of those. So that's what we can really regulate. We really can't get into the content as far as and we've seen no agreement either on, how many hours it would be community-based messages. There's really no ordinance or anything written in the ordinance like that. They've agreed to allow a certain amount of hours a month, but other than that, we can regulate the time, place, and manner of the sign, but not really the content. I hope that answers your question. If you want to keep going, I can.
Director Sullivan.
Good evening, board members. Matt Sullivan, Planning Department Manager. Just a few comments, if I may. To Mr. McCarro's concerns, I certainly understand the concern about off-premise signage, but I do want to point out for the record that off-premise signage is permitted by right within the zoning district. So if the board ultimately finds against these variance applications, I would just exercise caution in making that determination, as that is in fact a permitted use. I just want to echo Mr. Fox's comments about the content regulation of signage, both in the context of the sin-based uses that were just discussed, and also in the context of actually the public signage that was discussed. I had an opportunity to speak to Director Cummings this afternoon about Attorney Sokol's proposal. We certainly appreciate that, but I would strongly recommend against any inclusion of a condition requiring any specific amount of hours or any public signage, and if that is actually proposed, let that be handled as part of a private agreement between the city and the applicant subsequent to this hearing this evening. But I would just exercise caution relative to any off-premise signage and a vote against based on that, as it is a permitted use. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Courier, sir.
Well, yeah, certainly the component I struggle with is the off-premises advertising. I'll be first, I agree that it's permitted in this district, but it's permitted at 150 square feet and those other criteria that they're asking, height and size, that they're asking a large deviation from. So we wouldn't be saying you can't do that if we voted against it. Or just to clarify that they still have a right to do it, but just not at this volume, this size. Probably as from my line of questioning is like Mr. Mankara, I struggle with that off-premises advertising of this size, of this scope. I think that some on-premises advertising is probably warranted given the size of the property, for their own use. But the off-premises, to me, is a huge ask. I can't find support for it. I think that, do they need to have off-premises advertising to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property? I say no. Is that within the spirit and intent of the ordinance of this sign? I say no. I think it's contrary to public interest and it's not served. And I think that is, for the off-premises advertising, I don't think that's needed for substantial justice. So that's where I'm at this moment.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher.
I'm going to find support for the application as it is, and not. I know there's concerns about the off-premise advertising, but I think to me, it's clear that we can't regulate that. So certainly, the application could be denied on one of these aspects here, but not based on. I don't think it could be based on the fact that it would be used for off-premise advertising, in my mind. So with that said, I think that what the applicant's proposing, the scale of what's proposing, and seeing enough of these on my ride to work and back and forth every day, I think that from, when they first put the one up 5 miles south there in Tingsboro or Westford or wherever it is, at first kind of like sticks out at you, especially 4 o'clock in the morning when it lights up. But then as I notice, I'm used to it and I see it, right? But it's not like, oh, this is like this thing sticking out of me. I'm used to seeing it, and it's actually good. I mean, I think it serves a purpose. So do the other ones that I pass by. So I think the scale of it fits. I think that what they're asking for, I believe, is reasonable. I know that we always struggle with the electronic signage, but I think that the applicant has made it clear that the images will be, every 6 seconds, it'd be stills. So it's basically just like a photograph and no animation. So I'm good with that. So again, I think the scale, the property, what we're looking at, I think it would fit in. So I think I'm going to support the application.
Thank you. I think I struggle. I struggle because of this. Maybe the size. I mean, it's a tremendous difference from going from 150 square feet that's allowed, going to 1,344 square feet. So there's a lot of variation on a theme here, and It's perplexing, to say the least. I think the thing that bothers me the most is the close proximity to the residential zone. And while I understand that 290 feet is far, it's not as far as the minimum requirement of 400 feet. I also understand electronic signs are the wave of the future, and they're today. It's probably what's going to happen. And they are probably easier now to monitor and maintain. And we can't regulate content. Whatever we do needs to be based on the codes and the actual zoning rules and regulations. And so I'm just having a very difficult time with the huge deviations from the law. I think that's what bothers me the most. So, what is the will of the board? Do you want to attempt a motion one way or the other to see what will happen? Is more discussion needed?
I mean, I think Mr. Courier already had the makings of a motion.
Yeah, I think he did. He went through the points of law quite succinctly.
You want to?
Yeah, I guess I'll just, editorialize that my interest is not in regulating content. I might find support for an application for a sign that exceeded our requirements because of the positioning of the property, because of its geography, because of the speed on the road, where the purpose of the sign is to help, is in the public interest because it is designed to help direct people to the site. But I don't find support for a sign that is simply excessive, because they, to your point, because it's commercially advantageous to have a larger advertising sign. I don't see that as being in the public interest, and that's where
I concur with that, and it's also, to Mr. Courier's point, could be confusing. If somebody was coming down the road, Mr. Boucher reads those signs, whether it's 4 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, it directs him to a product or a service that he believes is where the sign is telling him it is. So that's a confusion also. Mr. Boucher.
I want to know that I hear what you're saying. I think that, again, the way I look at it is, if there was no ask for electronic sign, if it was just a billboard going up, they wouldn't have to be here, right? If it was meeting all the requirements, and they could put up advertisement for a business downtown. So what I'm saying is that I guess I'm just suggesting that, again, I don't think we can, I'm not going to speak for anybody. I just said I wouldn't be able to deny the application based on my thought that there would be off-premise advertising when it's been made very clear that that's allowed. So I guess I go back to the way I'm looking at it is I'm just looking at what they're asking for. And again, just that fact that they can advertise for off-premise businesses or whatever. So that's just my own point.
No. Well taken. Mr. Courier.
Mr. Falk has his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Falk.
Okay, if the electronic message center was not part of this, and it was just a regular painted-on sign, static message, it never changes, they would still need to be here for the height, and for the area, and for the distance to the residential zone. So just want to make that clear. Off-premise signs are allowed at 150 square feet, 30 feet high, and 400 feet from a residential zoning district. Those have to be met. So they are asking for those 3 variances, plus the fact that the EMC portion is not allowed in the zoning district at all, the PI zone at all. So those are their 4 requests.
I'm happy to-
Mr. Courier.
If you'd like, I'd make a motion.
Yep, and Attorney Sokol, I'm sorry, but the public hearing portion of the meeting is over. This is now the public meeting where only the board can speak.
I just didn't know if I could clarify the brightness issue with respect to your concern about the residential neighborhood.
At this point, no, I'm sorry. Okay, Mr. Courier.
I'm making a motion, the description is 200 Innovative Way. I make a motion on the 4 variances that I'll read in as we've been discussing. Number 1 is maximum sign area, 150 square feet permitted. The request is for 1,344 square feet. The maximum height is 30 feet permitted. What's requested is 50 feet. The 3rd variance is to permit the proposed billboard sign to have an EMC. And the 4th variance is to allow a billboard 290 feet from a residential zone where 400 feet is required. And again, this is a PI zone. I make a motion to deny because I believe the variance is not needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property, given the special conditions of the property. I think the board recognizes it's a very large property and may warrant large signage for the on-premises, but, and the board certainly recognizes that off-premises are allowed, but the combination of off-premises sign with the large square footage and height and EMC, the board does not find that is needed to enable the applicant's proposed use of the property. Also, the combination of the off-premises advertising with the very large overage and square footage, height, and EMC is, board finds is not within the spirit and intent of the ordinance. The board acknowledges the applicant has the right to do it with smaller square footage and heights. The board doesn't have any comment on the property effect of surrounding parcels. The board finds that the 4 variances with the off-premises advertising is contrary to public interest, and substantial justice is not served to the applicant for his property for this size sign with off-premises advertising. So in summary, I make a motion to deny these 4 variances.
Thank you, Mr. Minkara, for your second. Okay. Mr. Minkara, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Minkara votes in favor of the motion to deny.
Mr. Kanakis, how do you vote, sir, on the motion to deny?
Mr. Kanakis votes against the motion to deny.
Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir, on the motion to deny?
Mr. Courier votes in favor of the denial.
And Mr. Boucher, how do you vote, sir, on the motion to deny?
Mr. Boucher votes not in favor of the denial.
And Mary Ellen McKay votes in favor of the denial. That is a 3-2 vote, and Attorney Sokol, the motion has been denied. As I have stated all evening, any decision by this board can be subject to an appeal. You have 30 days within to exercise that right. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please refer back to Mr. Carter Falk at the Planning Department, or Ms. Kate Poirier, or Mr. Matt Sullivan. I'm sorry that, it didn't go as you had hoped. However, thank you for presenting your application.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, I'm just curious, you said it was 3-2. Who else
Yes.
voted not in favor of the denial?
Mr. Kanakis.
Okay.
Mr. Minkara, Mr. Courier, and myself voted against, or in favor of the denial. Mr. Kanakis and Mr. Boucher voted against.
I'm sorry,
the
I
denial.
didn't hear.
No, that's okay.
curious.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. And now, we will move forward to the business portion of our meeting. We have minutes in front of us, and we have an agenda for our next meeting. I don't think we have any motions for a rehearing. Does anyone see any regional impact on any of the new agenda items?
No.
I'm just pulling it up now, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No.
No. Mr. Kanakis?
I do not.
I do not.
Okay. There's no regional impact, and now we will go to the minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to read through the minutes? And it would, someone want
The
to?
minutes, September 14th.
Mhm. In that case, I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Just got a couple minor comments.
Oh, get
Sorry.
those comments in. I'm,
Really minor. On page 3, kind of moving down to where it says end of public hearing, beginning of public meeting, line 3, it says the impact to the property owner is supported. I think it should say that impacted property owner is supportive.
oh,
That's it.
okay.
We can amend it.
Okay, so then I will adjust my motion to accept the minutes as corrected. Do I have a second? Mr. Kanakis, you got your hand up there quickly. Okay, Mr. Courier, how do you vote, sir?
Mr. Courier votes in favor of the September 14 minutes with the correction provided by Mr. Mancara.
Thank you. Mr. Boucher?
Mr. Boucher votes in favor.
Mr. Mancara?
Mr. Mancara votes in favor.
Mr. Kanakis?
Mr. Kanakis votes in favor.
And Mary Ellen McKay also votes in favor. And we have an agenda for the next meeting. We're done. I think at this point, unless there's any further business that this board feels is necessary to come in front of it, I will call this meeting adjourned as of 9:35 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.